Episode 1. The Boy in the Iceberg. The first episode starts with a nice presentation of the four elements of water, earth, fire, and air. And Katara narrates how the Avatar kept peace between the four nations. Who is the Avatar? The Avatar is the person that can control all four elements to bring peace to the world. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. The Avatar was the only person that was able to master all the four elements, and only the Avatar could stop the Fire Nation, but when the world needed him the most he disappeared. After 100 years of the Fire Nation's attacks, people believe that the Avatar was never reborn into the air nomads and that the cycle of an Avatar being reborn into the next nation was broken. We soon transition to a scene of Sokka and Katara fishing for fish to bring back to their village, and we see that Katara is a waterbender, as she uses her powers to catch a fish but accidentally gets her brother wet, and he starts a fight with her, which ends up with her unintentionally using her powers to break up a huge iceberg behind her, and it turns out that the iceberg was holding a kid named Aang, and his huge flying bison named Appa. But when he was freed he sent out a huge beam of light which is seen by the firebender Zuko, who is looking for the Avatar to get back his honor. But his uncle Iroh doesn't want him to get his hopes up and get disappointed because they have been searching for decades without any luck. And we return to a comedic scene of Appa sneezing onto Sokka as he tries to get it off of him. As Aang and Katara introduce each other, we learn that Aang is an airbender because he was able to fly all the way through the air with just one sneeze. And our main characters ride Appa to their village, but for some reason, Appa doesn't want to fly, so Appa just swims instead. As Appa is swimming, Katara asks Aang if since he is an airbender he knows what happened to the Avatar. And Aang says no, he does not know anything, but by his face reaction after it seemed like he wasn't telling the truth. And as Aang is falling asleep he starts having a nightmare that shows how he got into the iceberg. It was a rainy, storming night at the sea. And Appa couldn't handle the pressure, so they fell into the ocean and almost drowned, but Aang used his powers to freeze them both in an iceberg. After Aang wakes up he is in the village, and after dressing up Katara sees that Aang has airbender tattoos and gets excited to introduce him to the village. But the people of the village are scared of him, and the oldest member tells him that they haven't seen an airbender in 100 years and that they thought they went extinct. And Sokka tells him that he doesn't believe he can airbend, but Aang shows them his airbending by flying with his staff. In a comedic fashion, Aang flies so fast that he flies into Sokka's watchtower. To Sokka's shock, Sokka tells him that Katara is a waterbender, and that they can waste each other's time and not his. And the oldest person in the village, Grand tells Katara not to trust Aang, but Katara says that finally, she found someone that can bend and that he can teach her. And that he has so much wisdom, which leads to a comedic scene where Aang has his tongue stuck to his staff. After this, we transition to a scene of Zuko training on his ship with multiple opponents, as Uncle Iroh watches and explains that the power in fire bending comes from the breath and not the muscles. But Zuko is tired of learning the same technique and wants to learn the next set of techniques, but Uncle Iroh says that he is not ready and to keep training. But Zuko shows how strong he is by defeating one of his opponents with just one attack and tells his uncle that the Avatar had hundreds of years to train, but he does not, and he should train him in the next techniques Uncle Iroh agrees to teach him after he eats his delicious roast duck. After this, we transition to a scene of Sokka training little kids to fight, but they seem to be more interested in going to the restroom, and Sokka explains to them that they are the only men of the tribe because their fathers left to go to the war. But all the kids still want to go to the restroom. And Aang starts to play with the snow, which the other kids join in except for going to learn from Sokka. And Sokka explains that they don't have time for fun when there is a war going on which Aang has no idea about. But Aang's attention is soon taken away because he sees a penguin and chases after it. After failing to catch a penguin, Katara makes a deal with him. If she helps him catch a penguin, he has to teach her water bending, which he agrees to, but explains that he is an airbender and not a waterbender, and asked if there are any other waterbenders that could teach her, but she explained that she is the only waterbender in the whole South Pole. and Aang tells her that Appa his flying bison can get her to the North Pole to learn waterbending. And Katara helps him catch a penguin by giving him a fish that attracts all the penguins to him. And we move on to the next scene of them both riding a penguin through the now moving really fast. Until they end up in front of a huge ship which Katara explains is the Fire Nation's Navy ship, which is a very bad memory for her people. But Aang starts to move in the direction of the ship when Katara stops him because they are not allowed near the ship. And Aang says that if she wants to be a bender she has to let go of her fear, which convinces her to go into the ship with Aang. As they go through the ship, Katara says that this ship has hunted her tribe since the oldest person of their tribe, which is Gran, was a little girl, and it was part of the Fire Nation's first attacks. And Aang explains that he has friends all over the world, even in the Fire Nation, and that he has never seen any war. And Katara asks him how long he was in that iceberg, and Aang answers many a few days, but Katara says it was more like 100 years. Which Aang answers with, "No, do I look like a 112 years old man to you?" But Katara says that the war is 100 years old, and the only way he doesn't know about the war is because he was stuck in that iceberg the whole time. Which makes Aang sad because he missed so much of his life. And Katara tells him that think of the bright side and that he has new friends now. As they continue searching the ship, Aang accidentally sets off a trap that locks them up and sends a flare into the sky that tells everyone of their location. And after Aang escapes using his air bending, he is spotted by Zuko, who sees him using air bending, and he also sees their home.